everyone, I'm Rebecca and this is Lion, and welcome back to my sewing room. Today I am going to be switching things up a little, and I am bringing back a video topic that I did back in 2020 and 2021 at this time of year, which is to do a birthday Q&A because it's my birthday this week. My birthday is March 22nd, and so Lion and I are going to celebrate my birthday. I didn't prepare a tiara for Lion, but I think I am going to put a tiara on myself. That's better. I don't think his is going to stay on for very long, but I also don't know how long he's actually going to stay with me in this video. However, since he's here, maybe I will go ahead and start with some of the most popular questions, and those had to do with Lion and Dora. I have my questions written down right over here, so if you see me glancing off screen, that is what I'm looking at. Oh, your tiara is slipping, sweetie. That's a tiara that I got back when I worked at Disney World, and it's very tiny, but perfect for Lion. So the very first question that I'm going to start with, since this is on the Lion and Dora topic, is when did I adopt Lion and Dora? And to go along with that, how old are they and how did they get their names? And I will pop up pictures of Dora as a kitten. I did not actually get Lion when he was a puppy, so I will pop up some earlier pictures of Lion when he had 2 eyeballs, but I don't have any puppy pictures of this little puppy right here. So to answer those questions, I adopted Lion in 2017 in the spring, and they told me that he was about 3 years old at the time, which would actually mean that he's turning 9 this year, which is just crazy to me. I don't feel like he could be 9 years old. I don't even feel like we've been together for 6 years. He is just the most wonderful little puppy. And then I adopted Dora about 1.5 years later in September of 2018. She was a kitten at the time. So she was actually born July of 2018, which means that this year in July, she will be turning 5 years old, which also seems just absolutely crazy to me. As far as how they got their names, Lion actually came with his name. So I had kind of wanted to change his name, but he already knew it, and he had been going through a lot of rough patches, and I didn't want to have to throw one additional thing at him. So Lion had actually been abandoned by someone, like he was left in someone else's backyard, like they found random dog in their backyard, and they kept him for a couple of weeks, and then they turned him into the Humane Society, and then I adopted him from the Humane Society, but he had been like fostered out at that point as well. So he had just been going through a lot of fluctuations, and to make things a little easier on him, we kept the name of Lion. But I did for a short amount of time. He was actually in Annie with me in 2017, and so because of that he played Sandy, and so I kind of started calling him Sandy Lion to help him learn Sandy as well. I don't think he remembers that though. He loved being in the show though. He had so much fun. As far as Dora, now I do want to preface, I do not support J.K. Rowling in any way, but Dora is actually named after Harry Potter. She is named after Nymphadora Tonks. So that is Dora's namesake, but she has never been called Nymphadora. I've always just called her Dora, which I think suits her very well. I was also asked if I've ever sewn anything for them. I did sew Dora a sweater out of like legging material when she was a baby, but I have not sewn anything for them since because they don't particularly like to wear clothes that much. Lion doesn't mind it. Like he'll wear his jacket and stuff, and he'll be okay with Halloween costumes or Christmas sweaters. Dora hates it. She forgets how to cat, so no sweaters for her. Okay. On to the rest of the questions. So I have these kind of sorted by the most popular questions first, followed by in categories. You don't have to hang out with me if you don't want to. Do you want to go down? Okay, Lion's gonna say bye. Bye, Lion. Well, we traded out Lion for a cat, so here's Dora, but she's not tall enough to show up in the camera when she's on my lap, so she's just gonna sit on my lap and do her thing, which I know you guys all love when she does her thing, so we'll see what that might be. Okay, so on to the rest of the questions. These are the most popular questions first. So what is my dream or unicorn type project? The type of project that I would do if money wasn't an object, time wasn't an object, etc. And to be honest, I don't necessarily know that I have one, because more so than money and time, my limitation for my sewing is honestly my patience. And I have realized over the many years of sewing here that pretty much only have the patience for like a 3 to 4 week project, and otherwise I get bored and I get tired of the project and I don't want to do it anymore. So yeah, I don't really know that I have like a full-on dream project, because like there's a lot of gorgeous Worth gowns out there. There's some amazing like Disney or other cosplay gowns out there that are just absolutely knock your socks off, embroidery, etc. I don't have the patience for that. I don't have the attention span for something like that. So I would say probably my like purple velvet bustle dress that I would really, really like to make. That would be the one where if I have the money, I will purchase that beautiful purple velvet and make that gown. It has not worked out so far, but it is definitely still on my list. Thank you to all of you who contributed to my Ko-fi page for that project like about a year ago. It is definitely still on my list and I still really, really want to make it. It's just that that one will be very expensive to make. And then a lot of you also asked, how do I balance things? Like, how do I balance working and this, editing, filming, sewing, etc., and theater and personal life and all of that sort of stuff? And I am not particularly good at it, actually. I know I probably make it seem like I am. I'm really not. I'm filming this right now after work. I stopped work at 4. It's now 4:50, and at about 6 o'clock, I'm going to be leaving for rehearsal. So I'm hoping that this will be quick enough that I can take Lion on a walk in between. And yeah, that's kind of how I balance things, is I just cram everything in and then I don't sleep enough. Social life tends to get kind of crammed in where it can. Like I do tend to hang out with my 2 best friends fairly often, usually at least once a week to 2 weeks, once every 1 to 2 weeks, which is really, really great. But I am not as good with hanging out with like other people. One of you also asked about dating. I have not had time for dating for years. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm really not the best person at balancing everything. I just keep myself incredibly busy. Another popular question was, how do I stay motivated from one massive project to the next? And as you can probably tell by like how I space my projects, I do tend to shove in other smaller projects in between the massive ones. Like for example, I think the next video that you will be seeing coming out is going to be one of my smaller projects. So I am going to be making another American Girl doll dress, as opposed to like the giant cosplays I've just made or the big historical costume that is next. What is wrong with you? Oh my God, this cat. Am I a jungle gym? I think she wants her own tiara. That's probably what it is. Okay, we might have to film the video like this for a little bit because this miss is needy and needs hugs and cuddles. So I hope you don't mind. Like, you're gonna mind, really. Dora's on screen. You don't mind anything. As far as the motivation factor goes, that is honestly down to you guys. Like, you guys are 100% well, maybe not 100%, but like 80% my motivation to keep going from week to week. Like, there's a lot of weeks that I would rather not sew, especially after a large project or after an intimidating or challenging project. I would honestly rather not sew, but I know that I won't have content for you guys if I don't sew. So therefore I have to do at least a little something. So that's why I space those smaller projects in, because they give my mind a little bit of a break usually, and sometimes they take up less time in the week. So I'm not necessarily working on it like Monday through Sunday, which is kind of what I frequently do. Maybe it can be just like a weekend project or a one-day project or something like that to space stuff out and help myself stay a little bit more motivated. A lot of you were wondering what the costume is that I am the most proud of. And honestly, I think it's probably my Victorian child dress. This one right here. I did that in 2016 and it is so much hand sewing, like more hand sewing I think than I've ever put on anything else, and probably will ever put on anything else, because all of those little zigzags were stitched down by hand on both sides. It was really a long, like, talk about a project that took more than 4 weeks. And yet that one I didn't get sick of because I was working on at the same time as other things. So maybe that is the trick, but it's an almost copy of a dress from the Boston Museum of Fine Arts. I decided to add the sleeves because that was how I felt more comfortable. But other than that, it's a copy of it, and I am so, so proud of how that turned out. As far as the hardest costume for me to make, that's a hard question. I would say that the most frustrating was honestly probably the light up dress from last year, just because it was utilizing skills that I had never even thought about using before. I mean, electricity in dresses. It wasn't so much that it was hard, but it was really different and really out of my comfort zone. So yeah, there's a lot of others that have been far more detailed. I mean, the longest build was actually probably 1890s Elsa. So that one though, it was hard at first and then it was just embellishing forever and ever. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say what's hardest because everything is difficult in different ways. And I just kind of have to respect each project in its own way. And then several of you also wanted to know what my favorite and also least favorite decades of fashion are, and also like what are my favorites to sew for. So my favorites are the 1830s and the 1870s. And honestly, I think my favorite to sew for is probably the 1870s as well, just because I feel like you can throw anything you want at those dresses and that just makes them even better. Like more is more is more for 1870s. I do also enjoy sewing 1830s as well. I don't know, they're both just very, very fun to sew, very, very fun to wear, and beautiful and also really cute styles. And then moving from favorite costumes to favorite musical theater role and also least favorite musical theater role, my favorite musical theater role has been The Baker's Wife in Into the Woods. That is the one that I did just a little over a year ago, and that cast was perfect. I love that role. Like, that's a role that I could do every day forever. I mean, it's such a wonderfully written show. I mean, it's genius. The music is wonderful. The text is wonderful. It's perfect. So yeah, Baker's Wife has been my favorite. My least favorite, I'd say there's probably like a few, but it's really just whenever I seem to do a play, I wind up with like a smaller role that is hardly on stage and I'm just like sitting backstage doing absolutely nothing. So that is one of the reasons that I have really primarily chosen to do musicals as opposed to plays, is just because musicals are way more fun in my opinion. Okay, so those were all of the like most popular questions. So now we're going to move into kind of themes of questions. And by the way, if this video gets way too long, like probably more than a half hour or so, I am going to be splitting this into 2 videos. So that's your heads up, especially with the antics of Lion and Dora at the beginning of this video. So several of you had questions about my new job, like, what is my new job and is it in an office or is it at home, etc. So my new job is as an assistant account manager for an insurance brokerage. I have never done insurance before, so it is a whole new world for me and I am learning a lot. I've been there now for a little bit over a month, just about a month and a half in fact, and it's definitely a challenge. I love my team, they're fantastic, and I do get to work from home. So that was kind of the most important part for me, is that I can be with Lion and Dora. It's 4 days a week. So I still have a little bit of balance as far as doing like this and working, but it is definitely more of a time and focus commitment than my last job. Also probably just because I'm learning everything still. So now we're moving on to some questions about me, like not to do with costuming, just me. So as far as how old I am gonna be turning 35 this week, which is really, really crazy for me to think about because I don't feel like I should be 35. I feel like I'm still 25, but isn't that how we all feel, right? And then Costuming Drama asked, what am I looking forward to most this year? The thing that I'm actually looking forward to most is that my mom and I are finally going to go on a big vacation together again. I mean, we did go to Hawaii with each other last year, but that was just like a sit by the pool type vacation. But in 2020, we were supposed to have gone to Europe together. And so although we're not doing the same trip that we were supposed to have done, we are going this spring to England. And I am so, so excited. I think we're mostly just kind of doing the southwest of England and a little bit of London in there, maybe Wales, I guess we'll see. But yeah, I'm very, very excited because it's primarily areas in England that neither of us have been to before other than London. So I can't wait. England is my favorite country in the whole world and London is my favorite city in the whole world. And I'm so, so excited to get back there. The plus size costumer was wondering if I had a partner. Nope, just me. Ixonoris was wondering if I have changed much since I was a teenager. I would say yes. I think that I've just turned more into myself, figured out who I am. since I was a teenager. I don't think I knew who I was at all. Like, I think I was very much kind of hiding in what the mainstream expected me to be as a teenager, and therefore feeling a lot more down about myself as well. And I think that in the last really probably like 4 or 5 years, something like that, I've just kind of discovered like who I am, what my fashion sense is, what I want out of life, etc. And even if it doesn't meet those standard like goalposts that you might expect to be hitting at any point during life, I think that I'm just a happier person for it. That Victorian lesbian was wondering what time or place at any point that I would love to visit. That is a really, really tough question. And I think it would be fascinating to visit so many different points in time as long as it's a visit, because there's some really, really rough things in history, just, you know, in general. I definitely would not want to travel back in time to stay there. I would not want to live in another time. I like living in maybe not this current time. I do feel like things were maybe a little bit better like 10 years ago than they are now, but I think it would be very fun to like actually go to the 1870s and experience maybe like a ball in the 1870s, or ooh, maybe a Regency ball. That would be really, really fun. Like to actually go to Bath in the Regency period, go to the Bath Assembly Rooms, go to a ball. That would be really cool. Okay, moving on to some questions about musical theater. Lady Eliza Elliott asked, what is my favorite musical of all time? And that is Come From Away. Highly, highly recommend Come From Away. If you are not familiar, it is about the town of Gander, Newfoundland, and what happened when all of the planes that were en route to North America all of a sudden had to land because of 9/11. And it is the most wholesome and just wonderful ensemble show. I dream of being in it someday, and if you have not seen it, you absolutely must see it. Actually, go get yourself an Apple TV subscription and watch like the recorded Broadway version. It is so, so fantastic. Liska Scruggs was wondering if I've ever done anything in theater that is not acting or costuming. I did in college. In college, because I got a BFA in acting, I had to do various other labs. Like I had to do a lighting lab and stagecraft lab. So like I did have to serve as backstage crew for a show. I technically ran lights for a show, which I really didn't. I took line notes because they had already had all the lights done with just the stage manager. But I think that is it. Save to Bunnies was wondering if I've ever done just costumes for theater that I haven't also performed in. I did actually talk about this recently in my like theater costumes, all my theater costumes video, but yes, I have. So check out that video for more information. I will link it down below. Emmanuel Love was wondering for musical recommendations. Honestly, like I could go on about that all day. There are so many good musicals, but I would say just a few of mine that I tend to like listen to the most. I love the music of Waitress, again, Come From Away, love Ragtime. I'm currently in rehearsals for Titanic, which has a gorgeous score. I think Parade is such an important musical if you really like heavy subject matter. There's just so many. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful classic musicals as well. Like Music Man is one of my favorite classic musicals. So yeah, just so, so many. And Jane Smith wants to know what my dream role would be in any musical past or present. And actually that brings up some other great musical recommendations. I think at this point, my absolute dream role is probably Mrs. Lovett in Sweeney Todd, but also I would love to be Lucille in Parade. I would love to be Gertrude in Seussical. I'd love to be Dolly in Hello, Dolly. I'm sure I'm leaving some out, but yeah, Mrs. Lovett's my number one. A few of you had questions about Comic-Con and cosplaying. So Historical Belle was wondering, how do I like to put together my build books for competition? I've only done that twice. I only needed a build book for Felicity and for Cinderella 2 years ago. And both times I kind of like went on the advice of Kiralee Cosplay. Thank you, Kiralee. And she actually has a video about how like what judges look for in build books. So I'll link her video down below. But yeah, basically I followed her video and her suggestions and instructions and she proved it for me. I couldn't have done it without her. So thank you, Kiralee. And Kerberos Cosplay was wondering if there has been a difference in my con or competition experience from before versus after I started doing YouTube. So I had rarely been to a con before I started YouTube. I think I'd been to 2 or 3 Emerald City Comic Cons and I'd never competed in a competition. It has changed my costume college experience a little bit just because I feel a little bit more like I'm in the spotlight, and I am really, really bad with faces and names, but especially faces. And so I have like extreme face blindness, especially when it comes to costuming. So like, if you ever see me and meet me at a convention and you come up to me and you say hi, but you don't specifically say who you are and how I know you, I'm probably gonna give you a blank stare, unless I've seen you like a whole ton of times, in which case, you know, we know each other. But yeah, otherwise I'm probably gonna do like a smile and nod because my face isn't putting together who you are. And so it can be honestly pretty stressful to go to costume college situations at this point because I don't know who it is that I should be knowing from previous costume colleges and previous in-person interactions versus who it is that's coming up to me for the first time because it's you guys who are watching my channel and just saying hi. And so it can be a little stressful, and I'm also an introvert, so there's that too. And then Sherry was wondering, how do I know what to make for Comic-Con? Like, are there themes? For Comic-Con, there are no themes. You just make whatever you want. Like fandom, whatever, you just make it. For Costume College, there are themes. You do not have to follow them. So they announced the various themes. I think they've announced all of them for this year so far. Like if you check out their Facebook page or website, they're probably all there. I don't tend to follow their themes. I think they've got pretty decent ones this year with like the overall arching theme of being cosplay. Thank goodness they changed it to cosplay, but I'm not really positive what the individual themes are, and I don't know that I plan on dressing for the themes. So now are a lot of questions about like my personal background with costuming. So Princess Sharon was wondering, did someone teach me to sew or am I self-taught, and how long have I been sewing? I do go into a lot of my background, like my origin story of costuming, a lot more in my like every costume I've ever made video. So I will link that down below. Sorry, there's a lot of light here. So if my hand is reflecting and changing things, I apologize about that. The sun is setting. But yeah, I will link that video down below if you want to go check that out. But I am mostly self-taught. I have a minor in costume design and I did help out in the costume shop in college. I had already kind of taught myself to sew before then. And then I've just kind of been learning from other people online ever since. And Sue was wondering how I got started in sewing historical costumes as opposed to like theatrical costumes. That information is also in that video. A Stitch in Times line likewise wanted to know how many full costumes I have made, and I have absolutely no idea. But if you go watch that video and then count every costume that I've made in that video, and then that was summer of 2021, I think, that I made that video. So if you add on all of the costumes that I've made by going through my videos since summer of 2021, you will get the answer to that question and you'll know it more than I will. So if you find out, let me know. M wanted to know, what sewing project did I learn the most from doing and what did I learn? That is a challenge to answer because I think I learn something with almost every costume that I make. And it's a little like different something that I learn with everything. So obviously, like the older costumes that I made, I was learning more with each successive costume, whereas newer costumes, I am learning less, if that makes sense, just because I already have a pretty deep knowledge base at this point. As far as kind of like, I feel like the apex of where I was learning the most with each costume, I think it was probably around 2016. Things like that Victorian child dress, I learned a lot on. My giant turquoise ball gown, which was 2017, I think. That one I learned a ton on. I made a black bustle dress in 2016 that I know I learned a lot with. So yeah, I would say like around 2016, 2017, I was learning a lot more with each costume. And it's really just that you learn a little bit with each thing. So things like, oh, I have to dye an element, or like, what happens if you dye silk? What does that change the fabric like? How do I attach this trim? How do I get these pleats to stay? All those little things, and they just really add up. Juliet wanted to know, how has sewing historical garments influenced my sewing abilities as a whole? And again, I think because I learn something with every project, I'm just constantly learning and my sewing abilities are constantly improving, I hope. It has meant that smaller projects get really much easier and that I don't have to spend much time thinking about them. Definitely, like when I learned how to fit myself, that was actually probably the biggest thing. I couldn't tell you exactly when that happened. That was probably honestly more like back in 2013 to 2014, maybe even a little bit earlier, maybe even 2012, 2013. But that would have been like the biggest leap forward in, okay, this is how I take a pattern, but this is how I make that pattern fit like a glove. Prince of Snark Cosplay wanted to know if there are any eras or styles of costuming that I have not yet tried that I would like to. So historically speaking, I actually now have something from like, I think around the 1750s-ish through the 19 teens. I have something for every fashion era, at least one thing, which was my goal for a really long time in costuming. So it was very cool to complete. I think that it would be fun to try like a 1710s, but nobody does events for 1710s. So there's just like no reason that I need a fontage, and I'm forgetting the terminology of the dress right now, but where it's all like picked up on the sides. I would love to try something like that. Or also a Regency court gown. English Regency court gown would be fun to try, but no one does anything for either of those, so I don't think they're gonna happen anytime soon. Leading off that question though, Christine B wanted to know if I could pick an era of costume for a party event, which one would I choose? Now, assuming that I'm like hosting the party and that people will actually show up dressed in these costumes, I'm gonna go with 1710s or English Regency court gown, just so I'd have an excuse to make one of them and wear them there. And also everyone would look really freaking cool in these costumes that nobody ever makes. Okay, as I kind of suspected, this video has been getting way too long, so I am going to break this up into 2 parts. We'll get the next part next week, so check back next week for part 2 of this video. But hopefully you have enjoyed this birthday Q&A, and if you felt like sending me a birthday card or something, please don't feel obliged, but I do have a P.O. box, or I've got a Ko-fi if you wanted to send me like a birthday tip or whatever. That would be so awesome. But don't feel pressured or anything like that. All that information is in the description box if you are interested. I'm excited to turn the big 3-5, little daunted, but what can you do? Anyway, if you liked this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube at least once a week, sometimes twice a week, with my sewing vlogs coming out on Tuesdays and other costuming content like this out on Saturdays. But I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel or send me a little birthday gift, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks right here on YouTube. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Sharon, Mirage, Laura, and Jean. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!